Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at a brand new Tier 8 Premium, the Aguirre. I'm sorry for the pronunciation. As always, I'm not very good at that, but this is an incredibly fun new Tier 8 cruiser. This thing is in the Pan-American tree, and of course that means combat instructions. Seems to be the gimmick of Pan-American ships. This one gives you a 70% reload boost when the combat instructions are up. Absolutely insane. To compensate for that, the DPM is the worst at Tier 8 though, without this reload booster activated. 18.5 second reload on 9 203s. Kind of brutal. Reminds me a bit of Bridgeport, where you don't have the best DPM until you use your reload booster. Except this one, it's not limited in time or number of uses. It's limited by how many activations of the combat instructions you can get. So how do you activate these combat instructions then, if this is the entire power of this ship, which it is? It's down to potential damage. You're gonna notice we get a little bit of progress for every time we get a shell hit, but typically, you're activating these combat instructions based on the potential damage, which I was really surprised about. A cruiser at Tier 8 needing to deal with potential damage to actually activate its gimmick? Surely that can't be that good. Well, here we have Haarlem armor. So that's the Dutch Tier 8 cruiser armor, except instead of 30 mil deck armor, it's 40 mil. So 40 mil deck armor, 40 mil upper belt armor allows this ship to bounce any battleship shell in the game if you're angled properly and it hits you center mass. I have found this ship to be surprisingly tanky. We're doing a bit of a lighthouse build in this first game, but I go to a little more reasonable stuff too. I really did enjoy playing it with full lighthouse though. You just don't take that much damage and you're nimble enough to dodge a lot of that incoming fire. Potential damage doesn't need to hit you, remember. The more you can dodge, the better you're going to perform. You also notice that this doesn't lose progress that quickly. It takes 50 seconds to actually lose any progress on these combat instructions. So I found it relatively consistent to farm up this F key. And here's where the power comes in. We have such abysmal DPM, and suddenly we click our F key and we have a 5.5 second reload on 9 203s. Reminds me a bit of Des Moines, eh? You got yourself pretty much Des Moines reload while this F key is activated, and that's gonna make for a ton of damage into this destroyer. If you're getting shot at, if you're in a position to get shot at, you really should be using this F key on cooldown. I found it farms up incredibly quickly. Couple battleship salvos, let's remember, like at Tier 10, some battleships can get close to 150, 200,000 alpha damage per salvo. So if you dodge a Tier 10 battleship salvo, you get most of the way to this combat instruction because you only need 250,000 potential damage to get 100% of this F key. So relatively quick to farm up. So don't worry about that, assuming you're getting shot at. So how do we get this ship? Kind of sung its praises here. We'll talk about the weaknesses though too later on. Don't worry, it's not all perfect here. How do you get it though? It's going to be, unfortunately, in an Admiral bundle. So $80 US, very expensive ship, especially considering Black Friday going on right now. It's like $30 to $35 for Tier 8s usually on Black Friday. So over double, which is quite disappointing, and value is hard for me to assess, right? For me personally, I'd be much more interested in Black Friday if I'm going to spend money on this game. However, it might be available in the future, so we should talk more about the playstyle here. I really did enjoy it, okay? I thought it was going to be bad because cruiser that needs to tank, what? How is that going to work at Tier 8? Well, we get a heal, and our armor is quite good. If you run a full conceal build, it's actually quite stealthy as well, allowing you to push up to islands. But the problem is, as I played it early on, you don't have very much battle impact when you're not getting shot at. If you don't have this F key up, the damage is abysmal. Your AP DPM is the worst at Tier 8 at 132,000 AP DPM. The HE DPM isn't quite the worst, but it's pretty bad at 78,000 HE DPM. That's without the F key. So you really do need to activate these combat instructions to get anything out of it. There's not a lot of utility here, right? There's no radars, anything like that. At least we do get a hydro, which is quite nice. Allows us to push in a little bit easier. But there's not a lot of cap pressure we can do outside of just our pure damage output. And remember, you need to farm up this F key in order to actually have a lot of damage output. So you're not getting that bursty damage into an initial destroyer engagement. It's going to take you a little bit to farm up the initial combat instructions to actually apply a lot of pressure to a cap zone. 18.5-second reload on 9203s is really not amazing. But let's talk about these shells here. I'm using a lot of AP, and that's because we have slightly improved pen angles. 50 to 65 degrees. Standard is 45 to 60 degrees. So 5-degree improvement on both the minimum and guaranteed ricochet angles, which is quite nice. Allows the AP to feel just a little bit more consistent. 4,550 alpha damage on this AP. It's got surprisingly good pen, I would say, as well. Not enough for battleships, but at longer ranges, you can get through most cruiser armor. So if you're finding those broadside cruisers, even at your maximum range, which isn't very much range, mind you, you should be getting some very good damage out of this AP. It's well worth using. The HE is not bad either. It has 34 millimeters of pen, which is enough, I would say. Only 11% fire chance, though, with this kind of reload, makes for very inconsistent fire setting unless you have the F key up. I know, we keep coming back to F key, but that is this entire ship, okay? It is only good if you're activating this F key. 2,700 alpha damage on the HE here, which is actually a little bit lower than we find on Harlem, for example. But considering the F key DPM on tier 8, when it's up, it is kind of insane what this ship can do. And in these brawls, the more you push, the better it performs, it feels like. You will die rather quickly if you push in the wrong spots, certainly, as I will show you towards the end of this video. But I want to show off some of the strikes here, too. It is so quick to farm out this FQ. We just used it here, and of course, using the special commander, right? If you have Lisboa, after 2 activations of your F key, you get guaranteed 20% progress towards this next F key. And even these secondaries from this Kniesbeck is getting us a lot of progress here. Our hits are doing some, but considering our reload is so long, it's mainly waiting for the enemy team to shoot at us. Bismarck comes around the corner. Is he going to shoot at us? Maybe? Okay, and now we're going to get the F key. So we'll be able to finally finish him off. It's a bit of a waiting game. It's a bit painful to wait for it, but you can farm it up relatively quickly. We'll get a double strike here quick, and a Kraken, I should mention. This is one of the best cruiser games I've had recently. I had a really, really good time playing this one. Consumables wise, having a heal at tier 8 is just incredible. It's a standard heal, 14% HP back on an 80-second cooldown. Nothing special there, but having a heal at tier 8 in itself is very special for cruisers. So given the playstyle that we have to push, we have to brawl, yeah, we kind of need to have the healing here. 2 million potential damage in this one, by the way, so it's not a weak cruiser. It's not one that's going to be that squishy, so it allows you to have this playstyle. 15 kilometers of range with no spotter plane means it's going to struggle in those up tiers. Trying to get yourself into those positions to actually use these guns in high tier games is certainly going to be a challenge, and I found it quite difficult. The AA here is also not amazing, unfortunately, so if you're thinking of pushing up on islands, anything like that in early game or any carrier games, you're definitely going to struggle there as well. This is going to be a ship that needs to push up. We've talked about this with brawling ships in the past, but it's worth remembering. You're just going to get shot at more the further you push in. If you push up, you're closer to the enemy ships, and of course, that means they're going to shoot you more often. It's easier to hit someone who's closer, right? Fortunately, with this ship, you're given some massive benefits for getting shot at. I would say it's almost the perfect test ship as well. Test ships often get shot at a lot more. Pretty understandable, right? Ooh, the new shiny thing. Let me shoot at it, right? It makes a lot of sense. And a lot of the time, that kind of ruins the playstyle if you're needing to play with your concealment or you need to play flanking, anything like that. You're not very tanky. But with this one, it was great. That test ship focus was awesome because we guaranteed our F key far more often than otherwise. So very, very useful to get shot at. It's very, very strange to be playing a cruiser like that, but again, I had a really good time. Extremely long reload here, so brawling a Fiji, we have to time our F key appropriately. We want to wait for the timing of him to go broadside and get his torpedoes at us. We have our hydro coming up too here, which is really nice. Or we wait until it's so close range that the 20 seconds of activation time here is going to be more than enough to actually finish him off. And we waited just long enough, and boom, there we go. Dev strike. Running things like Outnumbered, Fearless Brawler, and the Commander, which I'll show you towards the end of this video. It's decent DPM, it's decent survivability, but it's just so fun to have this temporary, insane DPM. I compared it to Bridgeport earlier on, and I do think if you're able to survive, if you're someone who's decent at brawling, it's just a better Bridgeport, okay? It has better armor, it's still got healing, it also has weak DPM without its gimmick activated. But with Bridgeport, you're guaranteed a certain amount of time with your reload booster there. But once you've used it up, it is totally done. Where with this ship, look, we just insta-active. That was insane. We got basically our entire F key there in a single salvo from Vladdy and NC. Like, that's how much potential damage it requires. It's like 2 salvos from a battleship. It's so quick to charge up. And that's what sets this ship apart. If you're actually able to activate this F key, if you can survive in these brawls, you're going to get way, way more value out of this ship than you will with something like Bridgeport. So kind of insane that Bridgeport gets a little power creep, like a patch after it releases. I suppose that one was free to get and this one costs money. That's not a great way to look at this game, I gotta say, but it is what it is, I suppose. Notice we're tanking bow on into a Vladdy and an NC. This ship also gets an icebreaker, so there's a very small portion of the bow that they can actually full pan us and overmatch us. Otherwise, we're bouncing this incoming damage. Given it's a Harlem hull, well, we don't have terribly large superstructure either. Our firing angles are 33 degrees forward and 30 degrees backwards. Look at how much progress you get from a battleship salvo, man. It's so insane. And we're using it on cooldown here, so assuming you're getting shot at, you're just using your F key because you get it back in like a couple salvos or 2. It is really, really fun. Although I am going to go down here. This ship with its firing angles, though, allows you to stay relatively well angled and still bounce a lot of shots and get most of your guns firing. Against Alaska, though, well, that's improved fan angles, so we gotta be a little bit careful there. Dispersion is cruiser dispersion, of course. I am loving Outnumbered these days, so of course I am running that as well, allowing us to get even better salvos into these guys with 10% better accuracy when we are outnumbered. Just sitting bow in for your front guns only doesn't maximize your DPM, but it will keep you alive a little bit longer here. Alaska pan angles helping him out a lot. As for our turning circle radius, it's 730 meters, but our rudder shift is 11.1 seconds. I found that to be a little sluggish, so running this full lighthouse build with rudder mod instead of concealment worked out pretty well, I would say, especially because I want to get shot at, so I'm not as worried about my concealment here. Citadel repair is at 33%, so no advanced citadel repair. If you get caught broadside, especially at longer ranges, you will be taking citadel damage. So you got to be a little bit careful of that. Trying to get into position, trying to get into these brawling positions can be a little bit tricky. Certainly wanting to use some island cover. But again, you don't want to be using only island cover and staying dark the entire game, because then you just sacrifice all of your DPM. You need to be getting shot at. Here's going to be an example of losing all our HP pretty much instantly. When you're in a kited position, you don't get the full icebreaker. Your stern section has a little bit of plating to protect the overmatch of citadels, but not as much as your bow does. So when you're in a kited position, if they're hitting you on your stern, yeah, the damage, it eats a lot of damage then at that point. So you got to be careful about where you're positioning this one. In this case, well, our team is going to melt here, so maybe not the best example, but getting overrun here by 3 tier 8 battleships, and they got some support coming in with some cruisers and destroyers, and we're pretty much alone here, at least for now, until they get around the corner. Yeah, it's not looking so good for us, is it? And that's going to be the weakness. If you're getting yourself into bad positions, you're not going to survive long enough to make use of this F key. If you're not being aggressive enough, you're just not going to have enough progress to get this F key off. And balancing that is very, very challenging in World of Warships. Brawling is not easy. It is what I enjoy a lot about this game, but it is one of the hardest things to do because everything is incentivized to deal damage to the ship pushing in. And when you're a cruiser trying to do that, a well-armored cruiser with a heal, mind you, it still is harder to do in a cruiser than in a battleship. Overall, I'm very excited to have Aguirre coming into the game. As you guys know, I'm someone who likes pushing up and brawling and fighting it out at closer ranges, so it suits me and my kind of playstyle. Maybe if you're someone who's not as good at that, or you just don't prefer to do that in this game, this would be a pretty easy skip though, because you need to be getting close, you need to be getting shot at to actually activate this ship's strengths. But man, I had an absolute blast playing this thing. Here's your armor profile, so 40-40. That is a big improvement on an already relatively tanky tier 8 cruiser here. You see Harlem here gets 30 deck armor, which, you know, vulnerable to overmatch these days, right? A lot of 457s, especially in those up tiers. However, Aguirre getting that, again, pronunciation, I'm sorry, I'm trying, but I'm not very good at these other languages, I'm sorry. 40 and 40 is really good. 50 mil icebreaker here, so you got to be aiming up here to overmatch with 25, and towards the stern, it's still 25, and you see how it doesn't quite cover as much. So in that kited position, 30-degree angle kited, you need to be baiting them to hit you here, not here. If you're going to go broadside in this one, you probably are going to take quite a bit of damage. There is some turtleback here, which works at closer ranges as long as it's not 457s. That sloping is really solid. But as soon as it's further range, yeah, they're probably going to punch through. And then you get this weird kind of stepped up section here. It's hard to see, but towards the center, it is a little bit above water as well. So I noticed at longer ranges, the cross shots coming in at me, pushing up, right? You push up on a flank or towards the middle of the map. Well, anybody that's further away on the other flank, they can cross shot you, and suddenly you're giving a lot of broadside in those instances. So you can take quite a bit of damage in that regard. You got to be pushing up with islands to protect your flank and isolate 1v1s. But you do need to be getting shot at, of course. Here is the build that I was using, rather aggressive build, I gotta say. We want as much survivability as we can, as well as damage output. Concealment works to help us get into good positions, as well as disengage if we find ourselves in a bad position. However, I did a lot better when I gave up all of my concealment and just went full damage and full tank with this thing, trying to dodge a lot of incoming fire with steering gears. 6.7 second rudder on a 730 turning circle radius is really good, especially combined with the armor this ship has. You can bait a lot of incoming fire to hit you in your midsection, which you should be able to bounce a lot of that incoming damage. 40 also is a decent break point for a lot of HE. Our own HE won't pen us in our deck armor or upper belt. 34 here, so relatively tanky cruiser, I gotta say. I should also mention that with this ship, we can get it in random bundles, 1,500 doubloons for these random bundles. No word, unfortunately, from Wargaming on how many bundles it's going to take to guarantee it. As always, I recommend buying things outright rather than gambling on them. That's just kind of my perspective on things. That's where Black Friday is a lot more interesting to me because of the discounts on direct purchase. I'm always a big fan of directly purchasing the thing that you want, right? Because a bundle, a random loot box could be anything, even the ship that you want that's directly purchasable. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, here is your combat instructions. 70% reload for 20 seconds. And looking at it, I thought that main battery shell hits was going to be the way that I would get progress, but your reload is so bad without this reload booster combat instructions that 250,000 potential damage isn't that much to get, and that is your full 100% of the F key charge here. So really useful to have that extra bit. And I find that the shell hits is just there to tie you along until you get shot at again, so you don't lose any progress, which is kind of interesting that usually it's flipped. A little bit of potential damage is there to help you in between your battleship reloads. A lot of the time is how I was finding it on some of the battleship combat instructions. But here, you got to get shot at, and that is tricky in a cruiser. But given the armor here, quite solid, and man, I had a lot of fun. We'll see how balanced or not balanced it is as we play against it. I'm not sure. I haven't really fought against this thing yet, so we'll see. But this is the new Tier 8 cruiser. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.